just launched a poll for everybody. Now, if you were here last month for our first Chat GPT webinar, I know that you have already seen this poll, but I'm kind of curious to see what has changed over the course of the last month in our industry and whether or not the numbers look a little different this time around. So please take that poll. We're kind of curious, right? On a scale of 1 to Chat GPT expert, where would you rate your skills? I can say I fall into the 3 category. I'm like Batman. Chat GPT is my Robin. We're going to work well together, but I am still learning every single day. Artist, I feel like you are a 4. Do you and Chat GPT have a secret handshake yet?
We do, yeah. I think it's
well, it's a secret, so you can't tell us.
That's right. It was interesting this morning. We were talking about my wife and I were talking about our kids have their birthdays very close together in the summer, and we're talking about themes for the party. And I'm like, oh, let me see if I can get some ideas.
Yes.
So she's going through a bunch of stuff, and we're within 5 minutes, we had a whole bunch of ideas. I'm like, all right, I can be a party planner now. So you got all ideas, activities, theme, food, everything.
That's so good. I will admit I did something similar recently. It's my dog's birthday in May. So I asked ChatGPT to help me plan my little doggie's 5th birthday.
There you go.
There we go. All right, I'm going to end this poll because it's looking like, so guys, last time around when we did this poll, it was like 50% of respondents were in that 1 category, the like, hey, like, is ChatGPT my new Peloton, right? Let me show you the results this time around. There has been some movement. Now we have about 54% sitting in the 2 category. So it's still, right, still a majority of us today are still kind of learning about ChatGPT and what it is. And you're just getting ready to wield that mighty sword. And hopefully after today's session, you are going to feel a little more prepared to do that. So let's actually get started. I'd love to go over just a couple things before we dive in. First of all, this is where you are, ChatGPT, AMA. AI-driven marketing and student yields. And I'm Mallory Wilsey, your VP of Marketing and Demand Generation here at Element 451. I'm going to be both co-presenting and moderating today. So you'll see me in the chat room interacting as Artist makes all the magic happen. And I'm thrilled to introduce you to Artist Cadu. He is our CEO and founder. Artist is a highly accomplished entrepreneur, technologist, and educator. He is that category for secret handshake, passion for AI, and all data-driven solutions. And Artist has really spearheaded the development of our cutting-edge student engagement and enrollment management platform here at Element 451. It leverages AI and analytics to optimize outcomes for higher ed institutions. Let's go over a couple quick housekeeping items before we get started. The webinar today is going to last about 45 minutes, and we're recording it. I just triple checked. It will be available for download and rewatch. You can share it with your colleagues, and as soon as that is ready, I will send you an email when that content is available so you can access it on demand anytime. Now, reminder, this is an AMA style webinar, so we are hoping that you have come today with some questions, and that Zoom control panel has the questions feature, but we also have our chat room. And Donna, I hear you saying that the volume is a bit low. Please, folks, if that's the case for you too, drop that in the chat so we know. I'll just kind of hold this mic up a little bit closer for a few minutes. So like I mentioned, we've opened up that Zoom chat room. The best thing to do is tune your share settings to everyone so you can interact with the attendees as well as me and Artists. That'll help make sure that we do not miss any messages. And then finally, please help us help you. We're going to have a quick post-webinar survey. And truly, if you've been to one of our webinars recently, you've heard me say this. The ratings that you submit, the comments that you submit, not only do we appreciate them, we read them, we look at them, and we make decisions off of them. So we're going to pick some upcoming webinars this quarter based off of the feedback that you give us today. So it is really important to me that you contribute. So thank you in advance for that. Now let's just dive right into it, right? We've got about 70% of our attendees today who may still be scratching their head and saying, hey, what is this Chat GPT thing that I have been hearing about? So I understand that, and we're gonna cover this really quickly. ChatGPT is an AI-powered language model. It uses deep learning algorithms to generate human-like responses to natural inputs. GPT models have been pre-trained on large amounts of text data, and they can generate really coherent and contextually relevant responses depending on what prompt or input you give it. So ChatGPT was developed by OpenAI. It can perform a huge range of these language-related tasks. It can answer questions, generate new text, summarize information, and its purpose is to assist and communicate by providing those helpful and informative responses. So it's really powerful, right? It's like think Siri, but on a way more advanced level. ChatGPT entirely relies on the quality of what you're putting into it in order to get the best quality out of it. Now, the fancy word for that is prompt engineering. I have, for the last couple of weeks, I've been putting a very firm stake in the ground on this. This is the skill to master this year. If you are in a role where you have to communicate, and who is not in a role where we have to communicate, right? This is the skill to master if you want the AI boost. Now, I don't know, Aris, you probably see this too. I see people complaining on LinkedIn and Twitter, like left and right about ChatGPT, and it's just becoming the butt of a lot of really bad jokes right now. But it goes back to garbage in, garbage out, right? It's all about what you put into it. And so that's why this skill is so important. And ChatGPT kind of took the world by storm, right? This tool is able to execute a level of reasoning and intelligence that has just never been seen in any other AI system before, but it's still not a mind reader, right? So we have to get really good at our prompts. And that's exactly what we're here to focus on today. Now, I will let you know, today's session, in higher ed classroom terms, this is more of your 201 look at using ChatGPT. Last month, we had a session, you can see it on your screen. It was at the 101 level. It was excellent. Artis and I were just as entertaining as we're going to be today. But Artis actually dove into all of the prompt engineering education around tone, personalization, idea generation, and actually a lot more. So I'm going to right now drop the link into the chat. If you need that 101 level, it's there for you. It's available on demand. We are going 201 today, so buckle up. But to set the stage for today's conversation, I need to draw attention to three challenges. I believe artificial intelligence has a role in overcoming all three obstacles, and the teams that embrace AI are going to be able to achieve these results better and faster and easier than their competition. So here's the first challenge. It's staff retention and the brain drain that exists when our team members leave. Now, I just called attention to this challenge in a webinar last week too, and so I get it. I am preaching to the choir here. But coming out of the pandemic, there's just been a massive drain of talent and resources in an industry that is already historically under-resourced. Just last week, it was March 31st, I saw that the Chronicle published yet another article on this titled, "Higher Ed's Hiring Challenges Are Getting Worse." And you can see here, right, more than 50% of survey respondents are reporting that hiring is considered to be a moderate to serious problem for communications, admissions, IT. Really, it's like, what department isn't listed in this screenshot, right? Like it's everyone. So what does this mean? It means there's a lot of open positions. It means that individuals on teams have to wear more hats than ever before. And this all results in kind of a lack of expertise. And so, to top it all off, right, we're also underfunded. So this is just a lot. Like, it is a lot right now. And how, if I'm a leader, how am I supposed to build a more effective and productive team in an environment like this, right? Like, I can empathize there. That leads me to the second challenge. And it's the fact that despite all of the hiring difficulties, a lot of institutions are now having to grapple with this perpetual state of yielding accepted students. And there's a couple reasons for this. So for traditional institutions, that May deposit deadline is just now a moving target. And a lot of schools are extending their deadlines into June. On top of that, summer waitlist activity just seems to continually increase year to year, especially for less selective colleges. Some institutions like Central College in Iowa are actually intentionally choosing to focus on narrowing their funnel and boosting their yield activities. But what's actually more likely is that schools are in this perpetual state of yield because they are doing the opposite of Central and flipping the system with direct admissions. So an increasing number of colleges and universities are now experimenting with this new admission strategy that doesn't require candidates to even go through an admissions process. And the reasons for that, right? It could boost enrollment, it could increase student diversity. There's good reasons for direct admissions, but it results in the state of perpetual yield. And I know there's a number of people here today who represent community colleges, and you are no stranger to this. Every semester for you is that dual challenge of having to recruit new students and retain the current ones. And the number of students at community colleges is falling. It's fallen 37% since 2010, according to the National Student Clearinghouse Research Center. And as you can see here, nearly half of the students are dropping out within the first year. Only slightly more than 40% actually finish within 6 years. So retention is a huge enrollment challenge. And now we are just in the swirling state of perpetual yield. So these first two issues combined lead us to our third challenge. It lands us at, how do we accomplish personalization at scale when all of these other things are happening? And without the right team in place, with all these open positions, people wearing more hats than ever, we all have to stay hyper-focused now on yield activities. Like, how in the world can we even begin to think about achieving the level of one-to-one personalization that students are coming to expect? And here at Element, we actually talk a lot about how the current student engagement process is broken. I've spent more than 15 years trying to find ways to digitally engage with prospective students. And time again, it all leads back to personalized content. That is everything. It is the expectation now, no matter the age of the learner. And we have to do it in a highly personalized and relevant way. So we need the right content for the right person at the right time and in the right place. Like, that's a lot of things to get right. And it is really hard to produce content, and it is really time consuming. And so attempting to scale that to hundreds or thousands of people is, it's near impossible given the under-resourcing of the teams. So excuse me while I quote myself for a moment, but back in January, I published an article in Inside Higher Ed, and I pointed to AI as the difference maker. And in the last 3 months, I do believe this has become increasingly true. If providing a smooth experience for students is priority number one, these challenges have to be top of mind. And enrollment, marketing, and admission teams are going to be successful if they can embrace this new technology. I really, truly believe that. So I have been talking for far too long. So Artis, I am turning this over to you so we can see some of this magic happen in ChatGPT, and you can give us some of those more advanced ways of working with this tool for our yield-focused marketing.
Thanks, Mallory. You're spot on, and one of the things on top of personalization, there's a lot of other things that go into yield. And one of the things that we can do is I'm going to actually I'm going to go back to very quickly for those of you before we jump into our session today, and before we jump into providing some of the chat GPT prompts today, I want to go back to and kind of highlight some of the things that we did last time, just because this is super important as you guys are. Let me open this up really quick in here, and I want to go back to the ones that we covered last time. So for those of you who haven't received this or who don't know, just go take a look at the webinar, and we include all the prompts that we had provided there before. But in that webinar, what we did is we talked a lot about, how do we change the tone? We provided all the prompts in there. How do we talk about different audiences? How do we write around tone? How do we work with subject lines and SMS messages and email and generate those? We talked about, hey, I'm a marketing expert, generate and kind of subject lines and emails and so on and so forth. So we talked about personalization. How do we do that with event SMS messages? And then even using things like idea generation around different topics with how do we focus on that? And even a campaign bot. It's like, hey, how do I build the whole campaign around this? So creative direction on some of your content. So a lot of prompts that we covered last time. And what we wanted to do today is make it a little bit less dense, however, focus on the yield component, right? So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go in and we're going to go to ChatGPT. And for those of you who don't know ChatGPT, you can go to chat.openai.com and you can get an account in there. What we're going to do today, it's free however, I would highly recommend that you go for the paid version. I think it's about $20 a month. And what this gives you, it gives you access to the GPT-4 model. The 3.5 model it's good, it's great, and that's what we did a lot of our prompts on our first webinar. However, the reasoning in the ChatGPT-4 and the output of the reasoning, it's so much higher, and it's something that you're going to need to you should basically get used to that type of output, and that's what we're going to cover today. And a lot of the output that we're going to cover today, even if you don't have GPT-4 or access to it, you can always kind of download it from our website as soon as we're done with the output, if you don't have the right output there. So with that being said, one of the things that we're going to take a look at is we're going to go and essentially what Mallory asked before. It's like, hey, how do I, what are those strategies for admitted yield, right? So one of the things that you can do, I'm going to go back before and copy my stuff here. This is just a notebook for me to copy my prompts, so I don't have to remember and go back and forth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here. I'm going to change to GPT-4, and the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of ask it to act as a higher education enrollment expert. What are some strategies for admitted student yield? And I'm going to go ahead and ask this question. Now, one thing that you're going to see, there's a little bit of a difference between a GPT 3.5 and 4. GPT-4, it's a little bit slower, but because it's slower, but GPT 3.5 is a little bit faster. So for longer pieces of text or for things that you just, they don't need a lot more reasoning, just use 3.5, it's fine. But one of the things that we're seeing here is as this is coming back to us, it's highlighting personalized communications, right? So that number one thing, it's like, hey, yield refers to the percentage of a student who ultimately decide to enroll in your institution. Personalized communication, tailoring communications to individual students, highlighting their specific interests and institution can help them achieve their goals better. Financial aid and scholarships, we all know this, that those financial models and the financial aid packages that we send to those students, those are the number one things that kind of moves the needle quite a bit. And how are you able to kind of get to that? Admitted student events like this, that's great, right? So you have a playbook on your side. However, as someone who, of course, I've been in industry for a long time, we do a lot of admitted yield campaigns and marketing. However, if you're new to the industry, or you might want to have some other ideas, like this is a great place to start, right? So you're acting as an expert and you're asking it a question around strategies, or you're asking it for insights on how that expert would be giving you advice on certain things. So again, admitted student events, engaging with parents and families, develop targeted communications for families. A lot of admitted yield revolves around families, so you got to do that. Early engagement, you got to be earlier on in the process, peer-to-peer outreach, campus visit, as soon as you get that campus student in there. Social media engagement, you got to be able to build a great social media kind of engine in there. Clear, transparent communications. This is something that is missed a lot in our communications, right? So this is great because students are expecting, not necessarily transactional, but very clear and transparent. It's like, hey, this is what's happening. Ensure admitted students have clear understanding of the process, the deadlines, next steps, and you have no idea how many students fall off because they don't know that they needed to submit something or they're missing that step. Demonstrating outcomes. Again, so it actually, without it knowing the industry a lot, right? So it's giving us the top 11 kind of recommendations for an admitted yield program here, or the strategies for that admitted yield. So now let's go back and let's say, you know what, we want to, we're very email focused, and we're going to ask it, what are some email marketing strategies for building relationship with these accepted students, right? So we're going to go ask, and based on that personalization and communication part, it's like we can elaborate on one of these things in here. So let's go ahead and ask them, can you suggest some email templates or examples? We can also go in here and ask it about early engagement or any of the strategies that we talked about in here, engaging with parents and families. What are some effective email marketing strategies for engaging with parents and families? And promoting Element 451 University. Can you suggest some email templates or examples? All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So we picked one of the strategies, which engaging with parents and families, and now we asked ChatGPT to kind of elaborate on that. It understands that there is a question below, there's context above, and now we're kind of going in a little bit more and kind of providing and asking them to give us some more insight on it, right? Or to elaborate on that particular strategy. And this is a very common pattern, right? So it's this React pattern in GPT models altogether. It's a reasoning engine. Like, this was another way to think about these models. It's not a knowledge base to give you a lot of this information. Basically, it's not a search engine, right? So don't treat it as a search engine. Treat it as a reasoning engine. Think about how do you work with an expert, or how do you work through a problem? It's like, okay, I'm going to prompt that problem. I'm going to ask it additional questions. I'm going to go back and forth, and it's giving me some stuff. I'm going to kind of go deeper into that, and I'm going to go into more detail. I'm going to ask it a different way. I'll ask it to change some of the stuff. So I haven't looked at this yet, right? So you guys are probably looking at it. So engage with parents and family through email marketing is a crucial aspect of promoting Element University. Here's some effective email marketing strategies. Personalization, right? So use personalization tokens to address recipients' their name, tailor the content to their child's interest and potential academic pursuits. Here is some example. Discover how Element 451 can support student's name, future to major. So personalization here, right? kind of going directly into that. Provide relevant information, share pertinent information about academic programs, campus life, and so on and so forth. Showcase success stories. It's giving us some examples in here. Create a sense of community. Discover close-knit, community awaiting. Let's see. Invite parents to families to events. Offer helpful resources. Timely reminders. Send them reminders. So again, it's giving us really good advice on how to think about this, right? One of the other things that we can do here is now go ahead, and I'm going to go back, and I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to ask it to actually give me in this case, I told it student engagement, but because we're talking about families in here or parents, I can actually go ahead and say, create an SMS campaign to keep the students actually parents engaged, right? So let's change it to parents. Use emojis, no hashtags, because sometimes it thinks that, when you ask it to create an SMS campaign, it might think Twitter and it's using some hashtags in there. And of course, I misspelled campaign, so it doesn't care about misspellings. So you'll understand that word anyway. And now it's going in and trying to create those SMS messages in here for us. So it's like, hey, here is some example of those messages. All right.
Hey,
so
RS.
I'm keeping an eye on the chat to see if there's any questions that are coming up.
Yeah. And I think there's a great one from Erica, who is noting that, right, it's known that ChatGPT's data is based on 2021 and before. And while, yes, ChatGPT-4 has been trained on a lot more information, can you just speak to,
Sure.
your thoughts around whether or not this tool can give us strategies for 2023?
Absolutely. So when you think about marketing, the drivers and human behavior and psychology and everything else that goes around that, and we're gonna the last prompt that we're gonna talk a little bit about that as well. It's like different types of tactics, but when you think about when you use this as a reasoning engine, you're not necessarily looking for its knowledge, and you're not telling it, hey, tell me what your knowledge is, and then I'm going to do a Google search. So it's actually going and kind of putting together a lot of different fragments and pieces and kind of giving you what it thinks, or not necessarily what it thinks, but what you're prompting it, what you're guiding it to. And it doesn't matter that the information is old, because not a lot of strategies have changed, right? Strategic enrollment management has been something that's been around for a really, really long time. And there is a lot of books that have been written about it. There's a lot of content that's been written about it. And it kind of tries to figure out stuff coming from marketing, stuff coming from, the enrollment world. It's like all of these things, it doesn't matter that it's maybe the information is 2 years old. It's a reasoning engine. Use it that way. Don't think about it as a knowledge base. Think about it as an expert. That expert maybe didn't read the latest paper that came out, but they still know how to derive and get you to a good diagnosis. So when you go to that doctor and that doctor didn't read the latest research, they're still able to diagnose your problem and say, hey, follow these steps. And it's like, oh, maybe there is some piece of information that I don't know, but it doesn't really affect that where they are today. So what it did here, it went ahead and put together a 7 SMS message series to basically say, hey, parent, welcome to Element University. We're excited and to share updates, blah, blah, blah. Stay tuned, giving more open house type information in here. Heads up, here's financial aid deadlines. See what makes Element special. It's giving you links and video, right? So it's saying, hey, you got to put some video in here in this messages. Learn more. Here's some stories, success stories, resources for parents, enrollment deadlines. So you can see how now you can keep prompting it for more stuff, right? And so So anyway, we can keep prompting it for more stuff. However, let's go take a look at what I have next in here. As part of admitted yield, one of the things that we tend to do a lot is, okay, great. We ask students all the time about surveys, right? So during admitted yield, we want to get their feedback. We want to see where they are in the process and so on and so forth. So let's ask it about creating an admitted student survey, and let's see what it's coming up with. Because as part of an admitted yield campaign, we do a couple of things. We send communications, email, SMS messages, we do digital media, and we drive them to specific landing pages. We send them surveys to kind of gauge their, what their interest is, and kind of where they are. So let's see what it actually outputs. Huh.
Now, while we're watching this, artist, Sarah's wondering if GPT 4.0 can decipher information or comment on information from pictures or PDFs as well.
So yes, the GPT-4 is a multi-modal model. What that means is that it's being trained on multiple, like text, image, voice. However, ChatGPT here doesn't have a way for us to provide an input as a picture. Now, what's going to happen over the next few weeks or months as that is being exposed via APIs, what the idea there is that I can actually take a picture, and it will understand that whole picture as if it's being transcribed with words and can give me a response based on that. So the input can be a picture rather than, something else. So it still keep going, right? It's like, wow, all right. I mean,
so much.
it's being pretty detailed. But for those of you who understand, or for those of you who have done admitted yield surveys, there is a traditional admitted yield questionnaire that gets done. It's a pretty long one. I think the College Board does one, and you're asking the student all this kind of questions. It's like, what's in order, and how likely are you? Like, what's most important to you, in order to kind of define and identify them? What specific aspects of Element University most influence your decision to apply? So this is all great information, right? And we can certainly use this into our process, into our strategy. What aspects of the admissions process did you find most helpful and enjoyable? Again, every time, so it will generate slightly different answers every single time you are able to, you're going to ask it questions. So it's not going to give you the same answer. However, it's going to give you very close answers to this one. All right. So some demographic information. Of course, you can remove some of these things that you don't want in there as well. Okay, so we have a survey. We have a bunch of SMS messages as a campaign. Now, you know what? We're going to ask it one more thing, and we're going to say, you know what? I need you to coordinate these things together for me. So we're saying, write a detailed marketing plan to increase accepted student yield. You have access to email, SMS, social media, social ads, and the web. Provide content outlines and a timeline of all activities. So what this is going to do is basically telling it, okay, it's going to keep that context that it provided above, that it generated above, but now we're kind of diving in more deeper into it. We're saying, okay, you know what? Yes, this is great, but I don't know the timing, right? I don't know how to kind of mix and match. I have access to all these different channels. How do I think about this, right? It's like, I'm not a marketing expert, but I need, let's say, an agency to tell me, you need to have this activity overlaid with this activity, overlaid with this activity, and here's the topics that you need to talk about in each one of those. But in this case, what it's doing is going in and telling you, okay, target audience, accepted students, and their parents and families. It actually gives me the channels, the target audience, And the objective is to improve yield acceptance students through targeting, engaging multi-channel marketing activities. Going in through a little bit more email campaigns, it's giving me all of the topics that I need to cover, SMS, all the topics, social media, post featuring campus life, academic programs, and student successes, nothing crazy, Q&A sessions with current students and faculty. Of course, if you're not doing that, you can do live video tours, user-generated content from accepted students, and those social ads that are targeting and showcasing, again, of course, this is like, we can dive deeper into each one of these. As you saw before, we can just say, can you give me more? Can you explain more? Can you dive a little bit deeper into number 4? When we talk about dedicated web pages for accepted students with important link resources and next steps, these are usually our accepted student microsites, right? So Element has an amazing microsite builder for that. Interactive virtual tours, and then chat support for Q&A assistance, right? So that chat being part of the microsite or that dedicated landing page, now it's super important. So because you want to get those answers. And if you look further down here, we can take a look and say, okay, how do you organize all these activities? Well, it's actually telling us that. It's like, okay, January through March, post-acceptance period, right? That's traditionally what happens. We're in April, which is yield, of course, season right now. This is like the peak of it. And it's kind of putting everything together. Week 1, week 2, week 3, so on and so forth, kind of combining though. And then, of course, it's actually, look at this. It's telling us January through March. And then it's saying April through May, kind of decision-making period. It's like, holy shit. It actually knows that it's decision-making period. We're right in the middle of it right now. So that's the yield season. So focusing on campus life and showcasing it, email marketing. Week 4, parent-specific communication, resources for parents, share student or testimonials. Now, this is very heavily influenced by parents because that's what we asked it above, right? We asked about influencing parents and give me something about parents. So something, it's kind of, you guided it a certain way for a certain audience. Now I have the version that's on our website and that we're going to share. It includes the some prompts that are a little bit different, right? It includes those prompts where we're asking it for students, right? So we changed that. Remember, we changed that one word from targeting students to targeting parents because that was the strategy that we were going down there. All right. So do we have any questions as I take a little bit of a breath here?
Yeah, I love this question from Patty. She is asking about how important are the prompts and requests that come before it in that same chat session in order to get the most relevant outcomes?
Yeah, they're very important, right? Because basically you're guiding in a certain way and you're saying, hey, you're driving it through a reasoning process. And that's kind of the way that it works. It uses the context from above to derive more meaning and to get you to different questions below, to different output below. So they're very important, right? They're important because you can't think about it as a conversation. So I'm having a conversation with Mallory and we talked about, travel in the beginning. But then if I would have gone through and said, oh, this weather sucks. And then she's like, well, what do you mean? Like, it's like she needs to not change her whole context to understand from me, like, why am I saying that? Where are you in terms of the relationship and all, like in a relationship in terms of geographically? And like, she needs a lot more information to kind of change her whole context. Because we were talking about travel, we can ask questions and we can kind of continue that conversation naturally by just saying, kind of ping-ponging back and forth and going a specific path.
Yeah, and Chris, I think that actually answers the question you had asked about context as well. So it's great. Thank you. Now, Andy noted that maybe up a little higher when you were doing the SMS messaging, seemed like one of them might have stopped mid-sentence, something like our faculty members are experts, and then it's kind of like ... I don't think that is typical. So it might be based on something related to the prompt, right?
So it is. So I actually, great catch. One of the things that when it stops mid-sentence, it's actually generating text, but it's not going infinitely. So what you can do is you can say continue, and it will actually keep going on that same thread, right? So now, remember before we said, hey, April to May, and now we say continue, and it's actually continue that same thought process. So now it's giving us June to August, right?
Nice. Andy admits he's in that second category. I love it. And Patty so the answer to the last question she asked is leading her to this next question. Do we actually need to train our session on being a higher ed enrollment expert? And I'll say, Patty, I have done that. Like, I've used ChatGPT to create some LinkedIn digital headlines and some different things. I always train it on what best practices are for whatever task I'm asking it to do. So, Artis, I mean, you enthusiastically just said yes. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I'm going to paste a link in the chat in here. Here's a very interesting. You can take a look at this. Basically, it's like act as an English teacher, translator, and improver, and so you can kind of go ahead and copy these, but act as a position interviewer. So a lot of these things in here that are available, you can kind of modify and copy them for your own purposes. So I put that in there. But yes, it's very important. And as this is keep going on right now, right? So it's still going around those activities. I'm going to go and show you what I did for my kids' birthday. So what I told it is act as a party planner, right? Give me some ideas, theme parties for a joint sibling, 11-year-old and 9-year-old, the party will be held. So it's basically going in and giving me all of the ideas in here. So you have to prime it. You have to tell it what type of personality or what you're guiding it towards, right? So that becomes super, super important while you're kind of going through this. All right. So the last one that we're going to do is we're going to tell it, you know what, you gave me a whole bunch of this, but maybe I want some non-traditional ideas, right? You can ask it that. You can ask it to think differently. Give me edgy. And in this case, what we're going to do, we're going to say, recommend 5 edgy and forward-thinking taxes that are not listed above. So you can ask it for more. You can do that. And now it will actually go ahead and give you some more ideas that it did not recommend before. And the first one, it's virtual reality campus experience, right? It's like, how many of you have actually done that? Like, this is something, if you think like, hey, its knowledge is pretty old. Well, that doesn't sound very old to me, right? Virtual reality, it's like we're talking about this pretty often. Influencer partnerships, partner with social media influencers or popular YouTubers. It's like, damn, like my kids want to be YouTubers. It's like, just partner with influencers to target those demographics, right? So how can you do that? And that's an interesting one. Gamification. It's like how incorporate gamification element into your marketing strategies by creating interactive online platform where now, again, some of these, it might be like, well, how do I do that? It's like, well, that's not its job, right? Or that's not like, we're just asking for ideas. We're kind of brainstorming here, right? Branded virtual backgrounds and filters. I mean, I don't know about that one. So this was our last kind of predetermined prompt, but we can go in and start playing around with it a little bit more. I don't know if there's any other questions that have come up that I can answer.
Yeah. I'll note, folks, that we are at that 45-minute mark, but Artis and I are happy to stick around for another, 5-10 minutes to continue to answer your questions. We understand, though, if you do need to take off at this point, and don't forget, we are recording this session today. So if you have to duck out, don't worry. You will be able to catch these last few minutes in the on-demand recording, and I will send that to you via email just as soon as it is ready. All right, so let's take a look at some of these other questions that we have going on. Marcus, excellent question. Copyright issues. What do you think about that, Artis?
There is no copyright issues right now for text that's being generated. However, one thing to keep in mind is that there is a, as Google for SEO, if you're using this stuff for SEO and folks are basing knowledge, like SEO is a big one, though if you're using copy and pasting this text from SEO, you got to make sure, because Google is working on algorithms to identify what what is generated by GPT models and kind of generative AI and downgrading and giving those, SEO channels going down. So you got to make sure that, there is this cat and mouse game around academic copy that's being generated versus SEO and so on and so forth. So marketing material that you're trying to get people's attention is great. Now, if you're trying to go against Google and saying, hey, I want it for SEO to be ranked higher, the machines are going to get eventually over the next few months to a place where they can identify that's generated by AI and not going to use that. In terms of copywriting, there is absolutely, this is 100% original text right now. This combination of words have never been seen before and have never been put together in this way. If I do it again, they will be very different again, right? So there is no copyright issues for it right now. It's just a matter of the where you're using it. If you're using it for academic research or if you're using it for SEO, those systems that are determining those rankings or those acceptances, they might have something against this, but there is, as far as copywriting, this is brand new content.
All right, I've had a couple requests for some of the articles that we referenced from Christian. So Christian, I am dropping those links into our chat right now. There's a couple of them from that slide, so I want you to get both. So they're in the chat now. And I think we're caught up on questions. So folks, before we head out, I do just want to mention, we've been talking a lot about ChatGPT, but I really think that one of the most exciting features that we can get powered by OpenAI, right? The company that's behind ChatGPT is chatbots, and I do think that is going to have one of the most immediate impacts for higher ed in the very short term. So we have just released our own AI-powered chatbot. It's called BoltBot, and because it's powered by OpenAI, it understands complex questions, it understands intent and content, it uses semantic search, and it's going to provide relevant answers. And we were chatting with our VP of product recently, and he was remembering back when he was on a campus, and just especially like this time of the year through the fall, just how many times the phones would ring about things like, what size the beds are in the dorm rooms, or, questions about certain deadlines and things. I'm going to drop the link to this webinar we did last week on BoltBot, so you can learn all about both chatbots, but then also see a demo of ours. I got to watch on camera, and like you can see my face, be like, oh, holy crap! Like the reasoning skills, the intent understanding skills. I mean, it's just really there. So I see beyond these tools like ChatGPT a really immediate use case of its application of artificial intelligence in our industry around chatbots. And you'll get to hear me rant in that webinar a little bit about why chatbots are better than live chat widgets on your website. So
Yes.
if you're looking
Yes.
for the rant, download the
There-
webinar.
Exactly. Yeah. There is no, I don't think there is no comparison, right? Live chat versus chatbot. So it's very, very different.
All right. So friends, as we're wrapping up today, I just dropped a link to the survey in the chat room as well. If you enjoyed the session, let us know. Let us know what other sessions we can provide you. Again, going back to that stake in the ground, prompt engineering is the skill set to master this year, and we want to help you with that. Over the course of the next few months, we're going to continue to roll out some prompt engineering guides and different things. So we want to know what you want those focused on. So let us know, and then we'll go do it. But we can't do it if you don't let us know. So survey link is in the chat room, and we will be following up with you via email really soon to get you links to all of these great guides that we've been sharing today. And then as soon as this video is ready, I'll shoot you another email so that you can access this and share it around with your colleagues. I hope if we've done nothing else today, Artis and I have convinced you that this tool is incredible and can have immediate impact on your processes. So Artis, any final words?
No, you said it. Thanks for wrapping it up, Mel. That's great.
Amazing.